radio show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid every Saturday, noon until 2 on WRMN 1410 AM. Also streaming on WRMN1410.com, and you can watch us on the YouTube live channel on and WRMN's YouTube channel. The calling number is 847-961-1410, and the text number is 505-926-1410. So 847-931-1410 and 505-926-1410. You can also make comments on the YouTube live streaming. So, Paul, how does it feel to be a member of the largest police force in the world?
It sounds like the Korean War all over again.
Yeah. Well, I've got, like, you know, I know it was a comedy and a puppet show and everything, Team America World Police, and they're making fun of all, you know, the United States going in somewhere to be the police, to fight the terrorists, and then making everything worse, right? Well, I think that's a little short-sighted on this stuff. But, you know, what brought this to mind was that when the president, our commander-in-chief, was saying, listen, if you're bringing a ship through the Straits of Hormuz, a cargo ship, mostly oil, right? Oil containers, oil ships, tanker ships, right? And you're bringing it through, and we are the sole Navy protecting you. Like none of the NATO countries, no other countries, no one else has got the Navy to protect us, right? Well, you've got to pay. You got to pay. You know, because our ships aren't out there for free. They burn oil. We've got to pay the crews. We've got to use ammunition and everything else, you know, maintenance and all that stuff. And heck, people should have to pay. And they're like, oh, you can't do that. You can't say that or whatever. I don't see why not. You know, when we, you know.
Well, you know what the real problem is? Great Britain, the UK, they have 2 aircraft carriers, and they're having trouble with both of them. They don't have the Navy that they had 40 years ago when they were engaged in the Falklands. And in fact, in the Falklands, they weren't even properly prepared because they were using container ships for their Harriers as a supplement and their helicopters. All right. France has 1 nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Okay. India buys carriers from, you know, Russia because Russia can't really get them going, and then they buy them, right? And there's nobody that has the force projection that the United States has. Okay, and we're even deficient in that. I think we have like 6 or 7 frigates, and we have mostly destroyers. We have the Arleigh Burke class, where we have in the hundreds now, and you know, we don't have the frigates. We're building one based on the defense class of the Coast Guard now. They're taking a common platform and spooling it up with modules, okay? And that's good. But, you know, we've abandoned the navies as an element of military presence, except China hasn't. And we're heading for a world of hurt, and these countries better step up and build up their own reserve, because we're going to have to keep ours for us. And you know, we built these LCS, littoral combat ships, which means like ocean and close.
Littoral means close to the shore.
Right.
But, so with it's inside of the shore.
These ships cracked. There were 2, and now they've repurposed them as like minesweepers. And you know, we've already declared them obsolete and we've just recently commissioned several. They're based on cities, okay, and it's really sad that nobody's got these thoughts. Now the president is talking about this new battleship, which isn't a battleship in the sense. I mean, we were supposed to have like 8 Zumwalt class destroyers. They're really not destroyers; they're more like cruisers. But we only have 2 of them, and we just reconfigured the Zumwalt for hypersonic missiles. I mean, we're going to be, really behind, and if we're behind, our allies are really behind. And Canada is playing this game where they're giving us fires, but they're playing, we don't want to buy your stuff. We're not like, we're not like de facto part of the U.S. Canada hasn't had an aircraft carrier since about the 1970s or 80s, okay? And it's really sad. And now they're playing games with getting submarines, and they want to go off the F-35 and buy the Griffin or whatever, or something from South. I mean, they're playing politics.
Well, here you're bringing it right into there with Canada,
and it's ridiculous.
You talked about Canada, and here's another thing, right? Who's going to invade Canada?
Polar bears.
Polar bear. All right. So the Canadians, they're not worried about defense because they're like, the Americans won't let us be invaded. So we don't need to spend money on defense or Navy or anything because we got the United States, So we'll just willy-nilly spend it on a lack of a fire department, a lack of a forestry department, a lack of forest firefighters. We'll spend the money on social welfare programs and all this stuff, our world-class medicine where you have to wait 20 years to get a Band-Aid, right? We're going to spend all the money on that because we don't have to spend the money on defense because, lo and behold, the United States will defend us. Just like when we talked about Greenland so far back. And I says, well, that's nice. Denmark, hey, if Denmark had to actually protect Greenland, they wouldn't be able to do it. They don't have the population. They don't have the gross national product. They don't have a defense industry. But they don't care because we'll do it. How much are they paying us to defend Greenland? They don't.
Nothing.
They don't because they know we have to defend it. And it's like a joke there. What do we get out of it? We get out of it that these guys, okay, so they do supplement about $50,000 per occupant of Greenland, the Denmark government, like 50 grand. But it's expensive to live there, so 50 grand, it's like Alaska and stuff. But again, they're getting that for free. For free. They have this big lot of land that they don't have to protect. They're getting it for free. Canada, same thing. We don't have to protect Canada. We got the United States. They're never going to invade us, right? So we're just happy not to spend it on defense. And that was the first thing when you come into NATO. And NATO's over there in Europe. Most of the Western European states haven't seen a Russian soldier on the border, right? Since the 1990s, since the late 80s. Right, everything went back. Now you got Czech Republic and everything. The Eastern countries have. Poland remembers. Lithuania remembers. Estonia, Livonia remembers. Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, they remember. They're like, they were occupied by them, and they're like, there is a threat on our border, and we're going to maintain our army. The Poles are pushing a huge army, right? They're spending a lot of money. What are the French doing? What are the Germans doing? We don't like the Americans here. Well, if it wasn't for us, you would have, all right, so, pull them out. But, we still got this treaty with the Soviet Union, which doesn't exist anymore, that we won't put permanent bases in the former Soviet satellite, Warsaw Pact states, which includes the Czech Republic, Poland, Lithuania. We could have permanent bases right there where we have Stuttgart, Panzer concern, Patch Barracks, everything, Field Station Augsburg, all the stuff in Germany. Just take that stuff and move it east. Then see what happens to the German economy and what are they going to say? But But
Come
they
back.
haven't. They haven't been pushing the national defense that they should have for NATO, right? That's what he says. Hey, you guys got to spend some of your own money here. We're tired of spending the money. We're tired of giving you all this free stuff. They're like, you're going to give it to us free anyways, whether we spend it or not. Well, at one point you got to say, well, no, this isn't a bluff. If we can't put our troops in Poland, right? Well, you know what? Finland is in a former Soviet territory, so we'll put them in Finland. We'll pull everything out of Germany and put it in Finland. And what are they going to say now? Right?
Come back.
We put well, it's iffy putting forces in Turkey because sometimes the Turks play, sometimes they don't. All right? You put them in Greece. That's another socialist problem there, right? Move them back to Italy. We got bases in Italy. You know, but the countries in NATO are getting a free ride, right? NATO was a great organization because you want everyone grouped together. If you don't have one army big enough, your neighbor's got an army 100 times the size of every country around them, you're going to need 100 countries to group together to have an army big enough to at least, you know, threaten that neighbor. But then no one's paying for it.
Yeah, we are.
We are. Yeah, they aren't paying for it. They're like, oh, we got these, we're making weapons that we're selling to other countries, but we're not making them for ourselves. We're selling them to other countries. We're making these tanks, we're selling them to other countries. So at what point do we start charging for our forces? Hey, we want to have our forces over there. We want to help force projection, but there's a point where you can't be held prisoner. You know, if you're in a bad rent situation, you know, you got a lease. You got a 5-year lease, and the rent is going up, but you got this lease that said that they could raise the rent to a certain point, but you're stuck on the lease for 5 years. Once the lease is up, time to renegotiate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to leave knowing that there's no one to fill that lease. Tell them, hey, you either get 1/10 of what you were getting before, or you get nothing. Because you're not going to fill it. It's not like China's going to come in and defend Europe against well, maybe they would. So we're doing all this work, right, for the Europeans, everyone else, and yet everyone fights against us. Everyone is counter to what we need to do. And going back to Canada and stuff. But here, now you get to this thing talking about the world police, the International Criminal Council or whatever, the International Criminal Committee, the IC courts, the International Criminal Courts, right? And so we totally don't recognize them. We're like, nope, we're not going to recognize that. And rightfully so. I mean, we're the only country in the history of the world that has prosecuted their own war criminals, right? We got a very good UCMJ, a very good military justice system. And when someone does something bad, they get punished. They get punished, all right? We don't like having that. We don't like it. We always like being the guys with the white hats. We don't like the bad press or anything, which we only get bad press. Even when we do the best things in the world, the current press, especially overseas, is like, no, this is terrible. The United States is terrible. They're awful. They're awful. Well, what happens when we cease to exist, right? When we don't show up anymore. Then they're screaming, well, they're like spoiled children. They just took their ball and they left. They're not playing anymore. Yeah, that's right. Because we're tired of getting called names or being called evil, imperialistic, the evil Americans and everything. We're tired of that. Case in point. And we talked about this too. So Jimmy Carter, who has passed, you know, he's gone now, right? Gone to his great reward.
Oldest president in history.
With the what?
He was the longest living president in history.
Yeah, all right. So he had given Panama back to the Panamanians. And there was a whole press push down there about how Panama could stand up on its own and how Panama doesn't need this imperialistic invader that's holding the place, how they can defend the Panama Canal all by themselves and everything. So they're like, okay, they had the Panamanians, some Cuban-led communists, all right, agitators, tried to invade the canal zone, during which time they killed 5 of our soldiers, right? And during all this commotion and everything, 12 of these agitators get killed. And there's big crocodile. No one cares about the 5 guys of our guys that were killed. No one cares, right? But these 12 Panamanians, all students and all communists, all funded by Cuba, they put a big crocodile tears and everything. And Jimmy Carter, to settle the thing, says, okay, 1999, we'll give the canal back to Panama. We'll pull our troops out. Do you know everyone was all for that until the trucks started leaving the bases? And then all the people who lived by the base wondered where their jobs were going. Well, they're on the back of those trucks there. They're taking them out of here. They're going to get them on the ship, and they're going up to Florida. They're taking all your jobs up to Florida, dude. And little old ladies were laying in front of these trucks. Didn't want their military to leave. But, oh, wait, suddenly it's good. Well, you know, we're the bad guys. We're the bad imperialistic guys and everything. Until we leave, then we're the pouty kids to take our ball and go home. So it's like you can't win. Well, you know what I want to be? I want to be the pouty kid that's at home enjoying having a good time and not being called, you know, imperialistic and not being called a baby killer and not being called a jack-footed boot, you know, whatever. Not being instantly recognized as U.S. military throughout the world and treated like crap when you go on vacation or something, except for your money. So
You know who Checkers was?
who?
Who Checkers was?
Checkers.
Yeah,
Sounds like the name of someone's pet.
it was. It was Richard Nixon's pet dog, Checker. And, you know, they were coming down on Nixon, and they were coming down. This is when he was the vice president and everything. And he gave a famous Checker speech where he said, everything they're blaming Checkers for this, blaming Checkers. Well, we're like the Checkers of the country. They blame us for everything. But when we're gone, they're going to miss Checkers. You know what I'm saying? And then they're sorry they had Checkers leave.
You know, it just history it's scary how the world can hold you hostage, right? We're the most powerful country in the world, and we're being held hostage because they don't like it. They don't like that we're such a great country and everything. So, like I said, they know we have to protect this stuff. Like the World War II in the Philippines, all right? Big mistake there. We should have pushed more troops in there. We shouldn't have relied on the Filipinos so much, right? Because they weren't trained. They weren't ready, all right? They didn't have enough ready to defeat the Japanese. We should have put more of our troops in there and held the Philippines rather than have to give them up and then come back and lose a lot of lives later, extending the war and everything else. And they knew about this in 1939. They made the plans. And we're looking at now, well, what happens if Russia invades Poland? Well, geez, we're going to have to take all of our troops from Germany and Italy and wherever else and move them to Poland to defend Poland. But what if we already had them there? We wouldn't have to move them. But if we lose Poland, are we going to have to take it back? If we lose Estonia, that's one of the ones there. You know, that's scary, Estonia. And it just.
Well, you know what Patton said to Bradley? He goes, Brad, I don't pay for the same real estate twice. Once we're there, we should stay there. We shouldn't have to waste resources or people or planning to go get it again. Once we got it, we got it. And that could be it.
Yes. It should absolutely be it. I don't think that So bring that into the Straits of Hormuz, right? We got the Straits of Hormuz. I'm looking in there.
Got it. We got it.
We own it. No one else. I mean, you got harassment there. There's harassment. Oh no, there's 10,000 container ships going through there, and they hit one with a drone. Well, there was a bunch of pigeons, at the there's like 1,000 pigeons in the park, and I blasted a sawed-off shotgun with birdshot, and I hit one. What were the odds of me hitting one, Paul?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. And they're acting like this is going to happen all the time. Like every single ship going through the straits there is getting hit. Every single one. It's one or two because it's a target-rich environment, right? But we're protecting what we can, using our ammunition. Yeah, we're getting a lot of training. These guys are getting real good at it. Like we talked about I talked about the July 4th, right? How the British actually trained us in the French and Indian Wars, right? Our soldiers in the French and Indian Wars were trained by the British, and then the British, with their arrogance, said, these guys can't do anything without us. And then we showed them we needed them to kill them, right? We couldn't kill them unless they were there. And they're like, where did these guys come from? Well, we got the Straits of Hormuz now, and unfortunately, in the military, right, you tend to fight the last war you fought. And the last war we had fought was Afghanistan. Guess what Afghanistan doesn't have, Paul?
Straits of Hormuz.
A navy. They're landlocked. We're not using a lot of shit, but we do have the technology, right? So they have they actually have acoustics, right? Acoustics that can triangulate on a rocket coming in, and then they have the phalanx guns that can open up automatically and knock that rocket out of the sky. Based on acoustics alone, not even a radar thing. They just hear it coming and they aim it where they think it's going to be, and boom. Well, that's what we're learning down there. We have a training thing there. It's war, right? But our guys are getting real good at it. But it is expensive. Right? And that's the main thing is that, hey, these guys are using a $50,000 speedboat, right? They're getting it out there, and then they're launching a $5,000 drone off of it. All right, so when we come back, the second quarter of the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show. Yeah.
No.
It's Comrades, this is Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt every Saturday noon until 2 on WRMN 1410 AM. I guess, is Larry still on the line holding?
No, he called in. He says he's going to call in just a few
Larry's
moments.
probably going to call back. Good old
Yes.
Sergeant Major Larry.
Sergeant Major.
Yeah. So, Paul, we're getting a little reverb on your end.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, that sounds good.
Yeah, give us a little test count, will you, please,
Yeah.
Paul?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, you're still kind of cutting in and out. You're different from other weeks, but we're working on it on our end. It could be just a connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
All right. So, all right, we're fighting. We're learning to fight a new war because the last naval engagement, naval war we fought was against Vietnam, right? I mean, the Navy, Iraq, the Gulf War, Desert Storm, the Beirut, the Missouri was last used in Beirut, right? But when we're talking about dealing with something, we're dealing with the Littoral Navy, which was the North Vietnamese, and harassments there. That was actually the last naval conflicts other than the Cold War stuff where, we're hiding from each other. All these ships hiding or trying to find the submarines or being ready. You're kind of ready to draw the gun, be the fastest draw in case everything goes off. Oh, wait. Okay. Also, we blockaded Cuba. That was a big one. And then, okay, so going up, we got Venezuela. And again, here's where we could become the world police, right? Oh, look at what they're doing to Venezuela. Look at that, look at what we're doing. Well, we're destroying and eliminating drugs that are killing people. And not just the cocaine, all right? Because, it's cocaine, right? You could OD on cocaine. You could OD on heroin. But they cut it so much and everything. It's the fentanyl. It's the scary fentanyl, which is synthetic heroin, which is super strong. If you're not a real trained, pharmacist, a doctor of pharmacy, and you're dealing with this stuff for people, for painkiller, if you're just Joe Schmo cutting your heroin or cutting your cocaine with fentanyl to make it last longer or to give them a heavier hit or so you're not using as much cocaine, this stuff kills people. Like instantly kills them. I pulled plenty of dead bodies with the spikes still in them that were killed by fentanyl in Chicago. They had a fentanyl task force. This stuff is coming in through where? Well, they trace the rat lines through Venezuela. China brings it. They come in from Asia, right? Then it goes across, and then it's boarding the ships with the cocaine, the marijuana. Well, not so much marijuana and heroin. They don't grow heroin in South America, but the heroin's coming up north nonetheless because they have the rat lines set up with this cocaine. So we're sitting there with our Navy, and we're saying, yeah, we're not letting you through anymore. We're going to blow you up. We're going to sink you in the Gulf of America. We're going to sink you down there. We're going to send all your cocaine and everything into the ocean, and we're going to keep doing it until you can't afford to do it anymore. Because we're going to protect our people, even though, we got to protect the people. It's a great loss. It's a force reducer. All right. If we're spending a lot of money on people with overdoses in emergency rooms, people that are turned into a vegetative state that got to be a drain on the medical and their families and all that money and everything. And where is that cash money when people buy that stuff? Where is it going? It's not going to their taxes. It's not going to a mom and pop business. It's not going to increase the economy, create more wealth. It's going over to our adversaries. It's going over to the criminals. Who else out there is stopping this from coming into the U.S.? Venezuela certainly isn't. By them letting the stuff get out and come into our country, that's chemical warfare. That's even biological warfare. That's an act of war. You let this stuff come to your country and boom. Right? Canada, stuff coming down through Canada. What do they say? What did Trump say? I'm going to tariff the hell out of you because you're not stopping it. You have every opportunity to stop it. But we don't want to, it's not coming to it's not stopping in Canada. It's going into the United States. It's causing you problems. It's not causing us problems. Why should we waste something, because now we got to spend that money healing ourselves where we can't spend it to increase our economy I'm hoping people can get the thing that all these things weaken us. They bring us down to their level. What did your parents say? You're out there, you're trying to do a good thing and everything. You're studying school, and you got these kids all around you acting like the fools and everything. And there doesn't seem to be any retribution for these kids. But your parents say, don't go down to their level. Don't go down to their level. The whole world is trying to pull us down to their level. Oh, everyone's going like socialism. Like, oh, it's so nice. It's so nice until you run out of other people's money. Well, the only one that really hasn't run out of money yet is us. This is out there like, oh, let's get some of their money. All right? Let's pull them down to our level so we can have them. No, we've raised our country is raised up. We have the largest economy in the world next to China. And China's constantly trying to pull us down to their level because they say that the Chinese think ages and ages ahead, but we're their biggest customer. If I'm selling cookies, right? Just cookies. I'm a bakery, and I'm selling cookies, and my biggest customer is buying cookies, right? I buy 100 cookies a day off my neighbor because I have the money. Now my neighbor comes and steals my bike, and now for the next month I can only buy 50 cookies a day because I have to buy a new bike. And they're like, well, we reduced them because, we reduced his efficiency, but now he can't buy anything off of us because we made him more poor. The thing is, the United States gets richer and richer and richer because we have creativity, people that create wealth. Wealth hasn't always been here. The world didn't suddenly have 100 trillion in gold laying around and it got weirdly distributed, right? Wealth is created when someone builds a new widget, right? Someone builds a new program, and all of a sudden everyone's using it and everything, and everyone's like, well, I'm going to go out and dig ditches because I want money to buy this video game, right? And I created the video game. Doesn't seem like it's an actual product or something, but I got someone going to dig a ditch, which is creating like water drainage or going to help create housing just so he could afford to buy that stuff. It's creativity. If you don't have the creativity, if all you're doing is subsistence, oh, do I have health care? Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have enough food? Okay, that's all you need. There's no wealth being created. If I'm given everything, I don't need to get anything. There's no wealth being created. It's stagnating. So if our resources are drained by this crime, it's like having a leak in your boat, right? We're creating all this wealth, and then this wealth is going over to countries where the only thing they're creating is cocaine and heroin. Cocaine and heroin, which produce nothing except cocaine and heroin. And then our money from our production, from the wealth that we created, goes over there to supply guys that are growing cocaine and heroin. And I'll tell you what they're not doing with their profits, Paul.
What?
Well, they're not building orchards for foodstuffs like almonds. They're not building more grapevines for raisins. They're not building wheat fields for bread. They're not creating pastures for sheep and for goats, for cattle, foodstuffs to provide actual real food for people. They're not creating housing for people. They're taking all this wealth and they're spending it on gold toilet seats and prostitutes. Fancy clothes, fancy cars, everything. They're not helping them. The only time they helped the locals was when the locals come in to harvest the heroin, to harvest the opium. It's very labor intensive, right? So they're providing jobs to those guys, and those guys get paid a little bit, but it's seasonal work too. They're not creating a better world for them. They're providing a menial labor job. That's one of the things with the cartels down in South America. You want to keep yourself in power? You want to keep the people protecting you? Provide them with housing. Cartels say, oh, I got billions and billions of dollars. Billions. So I'm going to make some cheap public housing and kind of give it away free, creating my own personal human shield. Right? And people don't care. What are they doing? Do they have a job? They got a place to live. They got a roof over their head. Yay. No one's creating anything better. They're happy with what they got. No one's creating. So you know what? If it's causing a leak in my boat, I'm not going to keep plugging the leak. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop the guy that's stabbing the boat. Right, Paul?
That's a sound answer.
Sound answer. Hey, quit popping my balloons. Quit popping my balloons. Oh, why is he not popping my balloons anymore? Oh, here we go. We got Larry on the line.
Hey, guys. Great show as always. And Mike, be sure you put a plug in for our thing tonight at the American Legion.
Well, why don't you put a plug in for it? You're right under.
I'll do it right now. 6 o'clock. For those of you who remember back to your childhood, and remember that today at 6 o'clock at the American Legion, the Schiller Park Community Center, 4501
25th.
25th Street. We're going to be having a Pinewood Derby contest. Okay.
Well, we can't say that. That's copyrighted.
Oh, my mistake. Anyways, we always hear about the bad kids running around, and there's plenty around, but you never hear about the good kids. I want to put a plug in for the good kids today, who don't make the newspapers, who do constructive things. Will be there today. I think with the Boy Scouts. Can I say that?
Well, no, there's no more Boy Scouts that show. So here's what Larry's trying to say, right? Because this is like a veteran shout-out show, and we're trying to have a little fundraiser for Post 104 American Legion. We're not a very large post. We don't have a bar, all right? The Schiller Park, community of Schiller Park, all right? It's a little suburb just west of Chicago, and they named their community center after us. It's actually the Schiller Park Post number 104 American Legion Community Center. So it's a building there at 25th and on 25th Avenue, 4501 North 25th. So it's just between Lawrence and Irving Park. So just east of Manheim, west of River Road. We're right in there, all right? So it's over by the old Totem Lumber. So the Knights of Columbus from Schiller Park, Ave Maria Council, they supported the Boy Scouts. And way back in the day, all right, some of these old guys had constructed a Pinewood Derby track for the Boy Scouts. All right, so we got the track. So this was taking up room in the closet. We got a very small closet for Ave Maria over at Holy Virgin Martyrs for our Knights of Columbus Council. So I says, well, we got more storage space over at the community center. And I says, we could set this up for a possible fundraiser because you know who built all the cars for this in the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. It wasn't the kids. It was the fathers, right?
No.
Yeah. So we're figuring we'll get some of the fathers that might be veterans or whatever. You don't have to be a veteran. We're going to set up the track, bring your car out, make a car. We got loaner cars. We're going to have some beverages. We're going to have some hot dogs. It'll be a good time. Meet some of our veterans. I'm sure a couple of the Knights are going to be there. Meet a couple of the Knights, talk with us and everything. Bring your kids because it's going to be very friendly. And we're just going to race the cars. I think I got a couple prizes, and 5 ounces, but we also have a heavyweight one. As long as it fits on the track, it'll go. So thanks for reminding me, Larry. It's going to start at 6 o'clock and it's going to go till we're done. There's adequate washroom facilities. And if the weather's bad or it's too hot, we can move inside. There's air conditioning. There's washroom facilities. It's real nice. It's 4501 on 25th. So we got another call in here.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Who do we have now? You're on the air.
Oh, yeah. Hey, yeah, I'm David. I'm the guy from California.
Oh, yeah, it's San Francisco Dave. How you doing, San Francisco Dave?
Well, not too bad. You generally deal with military kind of issues. I don't know if you deal with firefighters. You seem to be a slightly better air than you were a couple of days ago. But I noticed... Oh,
the air is pretty bad here.
It still is, I know, but you're down to about 50 or 60 parts per million. But, a couple of days ago, it was up into the 150s and upwards of that.
We were in the 700s at one point here. It was the worst, worst recorded.
My producer, Dino, here is a former firefighter himself.
Wow, yeah. Well, I'm just wondering if Illinois or Wisconsin are going to send any firefighters up to Canada to help put them out.
I'm sure the offer's been made. There's a lot of smoke jumpers that would love to do that. Sure. It's who's going to fund them?
Well, the smoke is just going to keep coming until those fires are out.
Well, the way to get the fires out is to arrest the arsonists that are setting them.
Illinois firefighters aren't trained in forest fires. It's a special training that you have to get for part of the U.S. Forest Service, and most of the firefighters in the Pacific Northwest also act on contract. It's not something that you could take a truck 54 out of 63rd and Stony and bring it up to the woods up in Canada. For one, It'd probably take about 3 weeks to get there. And then they don't have hydrants to fill the pumper, and the pumper's probably going to get destroyed in the forest fire. So I think what you should be talking about is maybe firebombing and maybe restoring some of these airplanes that do the firebombing, like the old Catalinas or the Bravo OV-10s, things like that will actually do some good, not a guy from 63rd and Ellis from engine company number 79.
Yeah, that's...
Well, that may be, but I think they had about 600 fires earlier in the week, and now they're up to 900 different fires. And I think the state of Connecticut has just sent 6 people, but obviously everybody's going to need to send some people up there to help them out.
Forest fires. Chicago doesn't.
Well, I'm laying out the idea because
a bit disingenuous and facetious about that.
That's a great idea, right? And again, we just can't cross into Canada. All right, we just can't cross in there. They're a sovereign country. They should be able to protect themselves. Now, what we have and what
tell us all the time.
We've learned to do in California, in other places, Idaho, Washington State, Oregon, Upper New York, Minnesota, where they have these things, we have helicopters specifically designed to go to a lake, get a basket of water, start dropping on it, and to find these things. The thing is with Canada is it's sparsely populated, all right? But knowing that they get these wildfires, has their government, Trudeau and the boys, said, hey, you know what's more important than having, illegal aliens and supporting them is buying these helicopters and training helicopter pilots to put out these fires and hiring park rangers, all right, forest rangers to be up in up in the watchtowers looking for the fires, fire spotting, and said, hey, there's a little smoke over there. Let's get someone over there to put it out before it gets bigger. They're sparsely populated. They're spending the money on the wrong stuff. I would rather fund one of those firefighters, park rangers, than have to say, oh, well, this guy, he came in, he got off the boat, he came in, he's not legal and everything, and we just can't have him living on the street, so we're going to put him in a hotel and we're going to feed him because, we got human compassion. Meanwhile, you got 900 fires burning. So you have to prioritize your effort, right? I have a big heart for these people that come up from Venezuela and countries that they can't fix themselves to make it worse on us. And here, what did Venezuela do? I'm getting, right? They emptied out, just like Cuba did during the Mariana Boat Crisis, right? They emptied out their crazy hospitals, they emptied out their prisons, and they sent them on these big convoys up to the United States. Go ahead, the United States will feed you. And now we're spending tax money to feed them when we should be funding the same firefighters you want to send up to Canada. I got an idea. Let's go to ICE, all right? Let's go to ICE. Get all these guys that are in detention, instead of deporting them to Venezuela or wherever they came from, let's send them up to Canada with a couple buckets of water each.
Well, I'm hearing excuses why no firefighters are going up there. And
because it's Canada. I'm not in Canada.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the United States, Dave. Call the Prime Minister of Canada and ask him for his excuses.
His name's Carney.
Well, the U.S. ambassador...
we have an ambassador.
I'm sure he'll listen.
We have an ambassador. Yeah. Sure, there's an ambassador to Canada. Sure.
Yeah, and he said that he'd like to help put out the fires. And Donald Trump says no and says that we need to put more tariffs on Canada because they're sending their smoke down to us.
Yep.
Now, who's a moron? Who's a fucking moron?
I can give you a whole list of names, but I'll tell you one thing. If Canada doesn't have enough firefighters to fight their own fires and they're sending smoke down to us, that's chemical warfare on us. Canada is creating chemical warfare. If I live in a garage that's filled with gasoline.
You're just a liar.
Okay, bye, Dave. A lot.
Yeah, you know what? Number one, I terminated the call. We can't have that kind of language. I understand the compassion. I understand that people want to have something to say and they have a right to rebut. We welcome that here. but we can't have that kind of language. We're not going to stand for
Dave
it.
gets very excited, but you know what?
But we
you know
can't
what,
have
Dean?
it. Yeah.
Dave's in San Francisco, and Dave listens to us. WRMN is getting listened to by someone in San Francisco.
And I respect that, and I love
know.
it. But here's for an instance. Here's what we had for air quality. 747.
Wow.
Okay, that's what it was. That's the fine particle matter. The FPM is how they do it. It's the worst air quality ever recorded, not only in Chicago, not only in the United States, but globally. That's what I was told. So, that being said, number one. Number two, just to address what was the gentleman's name?
I call him San Francisco Dave. So
Okay,
his name
San
is David.
Francisco
I don't know
Dave.
his last name, but
No, but he had a great point. And the idea is this. There's not a fire department community that has not offered. Many have offered, to your point as well, Michael. Everybody offers, but because of the items that you're citing, they're not allowing people to just come in. And then, Paul, you make even a more substantial comment that firefighting structures is completely different from forestry. It is night and day. These guys that do this forest fighting, it's a totally different situation. So everybody wants to help, and everybody tries to help. But you know what? Nobody, it's just like, I don't know.
all right. We'll come back to
Nobody
the
wants to
second half of
chime
Chief
in
Guard of the Republic.
until it affects them, and that's the bad part. You know, where were all these ideas before? But now when there's a problem, oh, America, we need you, to your point. All right, we'll be back in a bit. You are definitely listening to Chief Guard of the Republic with Michael Tuman and Paul Burvid. Got it. I always mess it up. Sorry,
Thanks,
Paul.
Dean.
We'll be back in a bit.
Sorry,
folks.
Dean.
Thank you.
Comrades, this is Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with your co-hosts Mike Tuman and Paul Burvid. I got Dino there.
What's going on, everybody?
Dean.
How are you?
You're on the
Hey, we do have a phone call. Let's get this. Do you mind we get this phone caller?
You're on the
What happened there?
You're on the YouTube. You can put all three of us on.
Yeah, let's do that. Give me a second.
There's me.
There
me
we
and Dino.
go.
There we
Now
go.
we're in.
There we go.
Hey, caller, you're on the air. Who do we have, please?
I'm Ron. I'm from the Hamilton Field in Northern California.
Oh,
Hi, Ron. How you doing?
Well, I think all right. I've been listening a bit, and your last caller and some of that situation about being able to deliver support. Deliver support's got to come from our military and state people who have the air power to drop chemical and water.
Well,
that's the only thing that can be of any benefit. You know that.
Yeah.
And my concern is, though, sir, let me say what I got to say. I'm a senior. I'm a little get tired here real quick. I go back a number of years, over 70 years, looking at military-based problems. And at Hamilton, where I'm at right now, that's where we embarked 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T. That's a dioxin herbicide. In Vietnam, and it was used around and in the country. But the problem and study that we came about was in forest fires, it creates dioxin, and the particulate in smoke drops off wherever it goes in small particulate, and that means that anyone ingesting that smoke, small amounts, can ingest a certain amount of dioxins. Dioxins attach to fatty tissues, which will also include a mother's breast milk. The problem is it's transgenerational. If you get a lot of it, it can go into your genetic system and transform itself into your offspring, your babies, your future children.
Okay, that's
right now.
Continue.
Right now, the government says that 40%. Our government, current government, I think it's doing a good job on some levels, and I'm concerned about others. But that's not the issue. The issue is 40% of our kids are born with, from birth to the age of 17, noted chronic illnesses. And that means a lot of ones that are going to be permanent throughout their lives, and maybe they can overcome it. But that means it's coming from the parent who's ingested something somewhere along the line that transfers to offspring. Right now, you got the worst condition you could possibly have. And I would say to people, please, keep the windows shut. Get those air cleaners. Avoid where you can breathing in this stuff, because they're breathing in a toxin that could stay with you for life. And that's a health issue. And that's why I would say put every effort you can to take your government, who will act positively if they have the power to do something. I would ask the president personally to send whatever he can in support air-wise to make whatever drops it has, because we have sufficient air power in which to load in with tankers the chemicals necessary and the water where they can pick it up. So that's all I say. It's not political. It's humanity has a concern that we have the technology and the ability to handle today in support.
Thanks, Ron.
Of the nation of it. Thank you.
That was great, Ron. That was absolutely
great
experience, wealth of knowledge,
yes,
and everything.
Beautiful.
I only have one thing to say. Again, Canada is a sovereign country. All right, we cannot just send our military across the border into Canada without having been invited by the Canadian government. All right, not by a Canadian living on the border, not by some guy up in a lake, lake whatever, not by Dudley Do-Right. All right, the Canadian government has to say, we're asking for the assistance of the United States in fighting these fires. Then we'll come.
Sir,
we would respond.
Anything, or am I off the air already?
Okay.
Can I say something?
Okay, Ron.
Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
All right. My situation is politically, economically, understanding human nature. If the president or someone from his group would go and say to Canada openly, publicly, listen, we can help you. If you want, please ask us and we will oblige. It's that simple. Nobody can walk into Canada uninvited, but let's open the door somewhere, because if we open the door now, you, right at your radio station, your callers in the immediate locale, you might be protected in the future, and you might protect your children, your grandchildren, and generations to come. This crap is the worst case scenario for bioaccumulation of a toxin that would have effect on you, your future, your health. It doesn't have to hit you today. It can hit you 10 years, 20 years, even 50 years hence. But when it hits your offspring, you're not giving them much of a chance in the new world.
It's like that mesothelioma stuff. It stays with you.
Yeah, that's the asbestos. The asbestos fibers.
But you make a point, Ron, and just
Ron
one
makes
thing,
an extremely good point.
You don't know that our government hasn't offered, and unfortunately, because of these, and I know you're not making a political statement, you're just bringing up a humanitarian idea and thought, but because of sometimes these political rifts, people get very stubborn. And I'm not talking about, our president, I'm talking about in Canada. Well, we'll do it ourselves. So we don't know if the offer was made.
You don't have the evidence to make that a fact.
Ron, let me give you a little.
Either way.
Ron, let me give you a little story here. All right, so everyone remembers when Chernobyl went off. Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm using the I'm stressing the wrong syllables. I think I'm stressing the penultimate syllable. All right. So what happened, the prevailing winds carried that stuff over Poland and over Europe, and it contaminated a lot of the foodstuffs, a lot of the milk and everything. So out of nowhere, unrequested, and got to remember, this is the Warsaw Pact days, unrequested, the United States sent over a bunch of humanitarian aid to Poland. They sent over, powdered milk or milk for the children, unrequested of Poland. Poland didn't request any of this. And it was kind of like a slap to the face of them that the president of Poland then sent 10,000 blankets to New York for the homeless, unrequested. All right? So
those are political moves on their part.
So, anything like that, that's also, yes.
Ron,
what do you got to say, Paul?
Going on in Canada for the prime minister, it's going to be in the fall, and it's between Peter Poilievre and Carney. And Poilievre is from the western part of Canada, and that's also the part of Canada that's been talking about seceding. So I have a feeling that there is more to this in an internal dispute in Canadian politics than there is in a national dispute between the U.S. and Canada.
Okay, I'll just say one thing if I can, so I can get off my throat starting to bother me. Unfortunately, I'm getting older than I'd like to be.
All right.
The bottom line is here. Let's keep our focus on the humanitarian aspect, and maybe then we'd have some better understanding. You know, I hear a lot of complaints about the president. I've worked with a lot of people in my life, and I've seen a lot of people who are distorted in their thinking and having problems and having some illness, who can be the most brilliant people in the world. And if that can be the proper track in a positive way, I think we can overcome this. My concern now is, folks, for you, your families, and the majority of all those who have been afflicted by the contaminant of dioxin in this airborne forest fires, evidenced in the history of it, in science, that you people should well take care of yourselves and do whatever you can to eliminate, detoxify, whatever that is you can do, because it's in you. It's an accumulative factor. Unfortunately, dioxin attaches to the fatty tissue, whereas the understood glyphosate, which is being used, it doesn't waste time with the fatty tissue. It goes directly to the organs. But you're dealing with something that Vietnam could tell you. Look at their children. Look at what's taking place now. We've learned now since. We should understand it. Dioxin is derived from originally in World War II by the German poison gas people who used it. And then it came in our country, and it was used in DDT. So you folks know all the history about it. So please, do whatever you can to get your government and the people involved for the humanitarian sake. And if Canada doesn't want it, you can't do much about it. But make it public, not in the back room. Put it out in the public, and let's see what happens.
Ron, you are absolutely correct. I have no argument with that. You're right. Let's put it in the public. I think the Canadian leadership and United States leadership, for exactly what you said, for the health of the American people, should get together and talk about this and get things done that are going to mitigate all these factors, all right? That we should be out there doing it. If the Canadian government doesn't want to cooperate with us, how do we force them to the table?
Well,
we got to find something where we can nuke them.
You got to get to their public. You got to get to their public. They know. You're talking about basically a health causation factor that is generationally impacting, not just today, generationally impacting.
Yes, I understand that. So that's the basic of PSYOPs. That's the basic of PSYOPs. If you can't convince the leadership, you got to convince the people who will convince the leadership. They're going to listen to someone. They're going to listen to their constituents. All right. Again, this is Canada. All right. So if we went and
you're on radio, man, get to the radio stations.
This radio station is streaming on YouTube. This radio station is streaming on YouTube.
Well, no, YouTube is perfect.
Yeah.
How many get to the young people on YouTube? You've got the power and the influence. It's in your hands.
All right. Yeah, and this show will be uploaded to chiefguardoftherepublic.silink.net. And, well, it's going to be the Chief Guard of the Republic YouTube channel.
Well, make it an effort, sir. Make it an effort, sir, to make sure it's uploaded on multiple places, especially where young people are who can be energized. Teens, post-teens,
I'm trying to get this stuff up on Rumble,
workers. Too. It's the workers. Get the people behind it. U.S. and Canada.
To as many people as you want.
Fantastic. Have a good day, sir.
Bye, Ron. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, hey, when you're talking about tariffs and stuff, how do you get someone to the table? How do you get anyone to the table? Well, you either bomb them, like in Iran, all right, or you tariff stuff because, hey, if everyone's trying to make money off of us, right? If we don't let them make money off of us or we reduce the amount of money they're making, then they're going to say, hey, what can we do? Well, you come to the table.
How you can do it real simply. You get all the kids in school and all the Sunday school kids and all the kids in camp to write individual letters to both Carney and Trump. And then you have them, that should be their summer project for this year. And then they should write little letters saying, can you work together to stop the forest fires? And remember, it's hurting people and the animals. I'm telling you, they'll even if they don't like each other, they'll be doing something.
Yes. try to do so. I understand, dealing with personalities at a high level like that, I'm not going to do it because I've dealt with it in the military a lot where I'm explaining to some boss, right, that, hey, that's a bad idea. That's not going to work. This is what the Army regulation says. This is what our doctrine says. This is the way we should do it. It's written down there for you. It's in black and white. This is how we should do it, and this is the way it should be done. And I'm talking about that, and they're like, I'm a colonel. You're a warrant officer. I'm a colonel. I outrank you. I'll do what I want. They're like, Colonel, it's not a good idea. And you know what? They do what they want, and they mess it up. And then they're like, well, I didn't like the way it was told to me or anything. But it's their arrogance sometimes at that level. And they can't think of, man, Ron is right. You got to take these callers, and if people can't, at the higher levels, can't talk to people at the higher levels, then what are they there for? All right. I'm sure if the smoke is this bad down there, imagine what it's up in Canada. I
was watching videos today because I posted on my own YouTube channel how bad it was, and I heard from people from Pennsylvania to Minnesota when I showed them the sunset, which wasn't even a sunset 2 days ago. And I've got hundreds of views from all over the country and people commenting, and it's terrible in Canada too. And you just got to wonder, why are governments allowing this? And that man is right about the chemicals, but think of what this is going to do to the long-term population, to the bees, to the insects, to the animals, and it should have never gotten to this point. This is an abandonment of the stewardship of these countries that owe to their natural resources and nature.
Paul, can I ask a question too, though?
Yeah.
Because you and Mike have these, what you can and can't do across the borders and what have you. The effect that this is going to have on the American people, doesn't that allow us some sense of right, if lack of a better word, some sense of even obligation to our people? You don't know, and I haven't seen many pictures in Canada that the smoke is as great as it is here. The reason is it's getting up into like that jet stream, kind of circling around and coming down and really giving it to North America the hardest, United States. It's hitting us harder than it's hitting Canada at this point because it's rising, and then it's traveling its way into our atmosphere. Isn't there some way that our government, other than you're saying it's a sovereign country, Canada, we just can't
go
go
to
in
the World Court, and they can take some action. It's really hard for one nation to force another nation, as Mike said, within its borders to do something.
But if your nation is causing ours potential harm, if not even immediate harm, you're talking
okay,
immediate
so
harm.
we're getting full circle here and things that are happening. Okay, so the stuff's coming down from Canada. So this isn't my life. I got lots of other stuff that I do. So it's terrible for the air. The forest fires are starting in Canada. What's the base cause of the forest fires? Has it been exceptionally dry? Is there lightning storms? Or are there a particular amount of arsonists out there starting fires? Is there no Smokey the Bear? All right. Is Canada doing their due diligence? All right. Due diligence to stop the arsonists and to put the fires out. All right. Sometimes you can just say, oh, they'll burn themselves out sooner or later. It's a natural event. Before human beings were organized and everything, there was wildfires burning all over the place. It was a natural event. The fires would burn out and then the trees would come back. Some trees had the thick bark developed where, a little bit of charring didn't matter to them. All right. So you're looking at a country there that should be able to mitigate this, right? Now, we can help them. But if they're not allowing us to be helped because they have pride or something, They have too much pride, or the politicians go, well, President Trump's in charge, so we can't let these people, we can't let President Trump's regime come up and help us, because then it looks like we're asking President Trump, and I won't get elected because I've told, the press is telling people to hate that regime. All right. Well, the same thing. All right. So it's causing us problems. So how do you bring them to the table? Well, you can't invade. You can't bomb their country. You can't bomb their city. You can't seize their. You can't seize their assets. You can't seize their ships. They don't have enough of them. Right. You can't blockade their ports and everything. So what do? You put a tariff on them. Nonviolent. It's a tariff. Yeah, it's kind of, it's a tariff, all right? Until they get their stuff together. Now, we tried this stuff in Iran, right? And what was the problem in Iran? Okay, we have, Ron said, 747, the worst air in the world. Well, you know what would make that air a lot worse? Nuclear fallout. Radiation would make it a lot worse. Well, we had some people developing nuclear bombs, not just nuclear weapons, but delivery systems for them. And they have no problem, zapping their own neighbors with missiles and everything, right? So we had to put a stop to that before it got greater, because they weren't going to stop themselves. And yes, that is a serious thing, and we did use military force. We use force, and we're trying to bring them to the table saying, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. We want everyone to have fair trade and everything else. They keep shooting, we shoot back. The people that we're dealing against, tariffs, embargoes, have nothing. As long as they got a weapon to throw at you, they're not going to come to the table. Ever, right? Canada, listen. Your neighbor is out of control with their backyard. You got vermin all over the place. They might actually be feeding the vermin, right? They got vermin all over, and now you're starting to get rats into your house. All right? You can set up traps. They still come. They chew through the walls. They get in your house. You're trapping them. You have the traps outside, but maybe you don't want to hurt the little other critters or whatever. But you're still getting this. So what's the problem? It's the source, your house next door. All right? So they got to fix their problem because it keeps coming down. That's Canada. What are we sending up north to Canada? I'll tell you what, if the prevailing winds and everything were carrying the other way, and we were letting stuff burn out of control, or let's say we use leaded fuel, but only on the border of Canada, and the prevailing winds were blowing the leaded emissions over into Canada, I guarantee you they would start screaming and having something to say about it. They would, hey, let's dump, okay, I got an idea. Let's fly over the pole and start dumping our nuclear waste up in their highlands up there. Let's see if they have something to say about that. Oh, it's not hurting anyone. It's up there. No one lives there. We're just disposing it up there. Oh, well, you got to stop doing that. Okay, well, stop the firefighters and natural events. It gets to that, but this is 10 years ago. 10 years ago, were we getting smoke from Canada?
We were getting smoke from Canada in 2007, I remember that.
So 20 years ago.
I remember coming out of the courthouse and it smelled like something was burning. And then on the news it mentioned that we were getting the smoke from the Canadian wildfires in 2007. But it's drastically increased over the last 5 years.
So in California, the drastic increase was caused by, they said, the forest department wasn't cleaning up the undergrowth, right? Let's just let it go natural. And they weren't cleaning up around power lines or anything. Oh, and then when the stuff hit, it started burning like mad because there's too much undergrowth. So they weren't being good stewards of that. And it caused all that fire because they're spending money somewhere else. All right? Well, we need 6 more paper pushers. Fire the guy that rakes out the leaves. Hired 6 more paper pushers. Create more paper. So is it bad stewardship up in Canada? Have they decided to spend the money somewhere else? Have they fired a bunch of fire watchers? All right, fire spotters? Have they gotten rid of them? And have they hired people to spoon feed illegal aliens that don't have jobs in their country? What's the reason? What is the base reason why all this is built up? What's the source of the perfect storm right now?
The Canadian government.
The Canadian government, yeah.
Well, listen,
We'll be back.
We're going to take a short break. But, folks, just one more thing to remind you of. Over at the American Legion, post number 104 in Schiller Park, they're going to have it at the Community Center, which is 4501 25th Avenue. This is for the good kids. We always talk about the bad. Hey, how about one for the good kids? It's race night. That's right. Tonight at 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. Bring your Pinewood-style car to the race. They got their own track all set up, and they're going to let the kids have them down. They got prizes. It looks like they got raffles, hot dogs, drinks, and snacks. And that's where the American Legion, post number 104, and it's at Schiller Park Community Center, 4501 25th Avenue. That's in beautiful downtown Schiller Park. So, hey, check it out, give it a shot, and let's support the good kids.
Comrades, this is Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with your co-host Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt every Saturday noon until 2, WRMN, 1410 AM out of Elgin. Massive 2,000 watts pushing down to near O'Hare. You can also get us worldwide, as we've seen with Ron and Dave from California. They picked us up, and they will probably stream it on WRMN1410.com, or they could watch us on the YouTube Live. I know Ron was mentioned YouTube to get it out to the young people. So we're starting the show talking about, the United States is the world police. All right. So as a police officer, when I was on the job, I've been in a couple burning buildings, and it's brutal. It's brutal because we kind of get there before the fire department. We're patrolling out there, and they actually have to call the fire department. They got to get in their trucks. They got to get out there. They're pretty quick and everything. They get the job done, but you can't just sit there and watch the building burn. If you think people are in there, you got to go and get some out. And I understand what Ron said, because I have taken a couple lungsfuls of black smoke. That will knock you down.
Absolutely.
That's why they tell you crawl, get underneath it.
Stay low.
Get underneath it, crawl, because that black smoke gets heated up, it's superheated, it goes up. Heat goes up, cold comes down, all right?
And it's not just the smoke, all the toxins are in that smoke.
The toxins, everything, anything plastic that burns is going to release cyanide gas and stuff. But you talk about temperature inversion. So cold, when you're up in the higher atmosphere, it's colder. You got the fires causing heat, and you have what's called a temperature inversion. So it's like having a cap on this stuff. So as the air gets colder, it pushes down the heat. The sun heats it. I'm not a meteorologist or anything like that. But, all right, so now we're talking about the world police, where we're stopping people that shouldn't have weapons of mass destruction from having weapons of mass destruction. No one should have weapons of mass destruction. But once they got loose, then the big boy clubs have the weapons of mass destruction, and we should really be what we're trying to do is to prevent everyone else from having these weapons of mass destruction. Obviously, our big boy partners in the world don't seem to care as much as we do. They're like, if the Iranians, who they don't actually border China, I'd have to look at a map, but they're a lot closer to China than we are, right? If they were really angry with the Chinese, I'm sure the Chinese would do exactly what we do, prevent them from having a nuclear weapon. But they don't seem to be angry with the Chinese. They just fester their hate for us. So the Chinese could care less. The people that shouldn't have it, have it. Right? The adults in the world. But now we're talking about, and we got onto this, the United States as the world's fire department. It's not just the police department. They want us to be the world's fire department. No. Yet we would love to help out if we're invited. When they had the tsunamis in Japan, we sent out a nuclear aircraft carrier there. And they're like, why are you sending a nuclear aircraft carrier? And the Japanese have a little thing against nukes, believe it or not, right? Even though they got their own nuclear thing there. But they're like, oh, you can't bring that over there, everything. Well, what does a nuclear aircraft carrier have? It has some of the world's...
A reactor to make fresh water.
To make electricity and fresh water, right? And a large kitchen area. big kitchen.
Big commissary. Yeah.
To cook food, all right? So you got communication centers, right? You got, it's a mobile city. You're getting it close, and you're hooking up, plugging in the extension cord and saying, we got this electricity here for you. We can make excess electricity, and we could desalinate water, because one thing you need is clean water, because a tsunami or everything could have wiped out your water purification plants. We do that. We send hospital ships.
Look, America is the first to respond to any disaster anywhere in this globe. Anywhere in this world, America is always first. I cannot believe that this administration has not made the offer to Canada. To the other guy's point, Dave, I can't agree with that. I believe that an offer was made. And I believe with the other caller, who's very knowledgeable, he really knows his stuff, a very, very sharp individual. But the idea is, yes, we can get this message out, and we will. We're going to social media it. We're going to do everything we can. Paul's been sending pictures. But I know our country is the first one to respond, to your point. But we shouldn't be expected to be the police or fire department. I also agree with that.
If we do, we should get paid.
Well, okay. But, yeah.
Hey, we come over, everyone's got their oil, right? Their fuel, their firewood, their coal or whatever stuck in the Straits of Hormuz. Some people want to get it out so they can make money, because that's the only money that country makes, because they don't have farmland, they don't have mines, they have oil. They put it in a tanker, they get it out, right? If they can't take some of the money that they make and buy a couple destroyers to escort the tankers to keep them from getting hit by the drones, like World War I, World War II, we sent over convoys, right? In the beginning of the war, a lot of convoys didn't have a lot of Navy, right? Later on, we built up huge navies. Got another caller? Yes.
You're on the air, caller. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hello, gentlemen. It's Cleveland Dennis. And
a real gentleman you are.
Yep. I can't say enough about the show. It's always intriguing to me, no matter what the subject, and I find myself relating. I'm alarmed by the guy that called from Northern California, but he really knew his stuff, and what he was saying, statements about this fallout that we're getting, is alarming.
It is.
Little story real quick from this week. I listen to different radio stations. I listen to my old used to be where I grew up in Cleveland. They were warning about this coming, like on Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever that was. But I never heard anything on any of the Chicago stations giving a warning. Not that it matters, but just a factoid that I happened to hear. Concerned. I got my air purifiers going. I got the fans going. Don't want to really go outside, but I will. I got clear lungs. I never smoked. Anyhow, I'm enjoying the show. The Japanese are sensitive to anything nuclear, and it's obvious why. And the Chinese, I want to say this because I worked with them for many years, find them very impersonal, but they made bad decisions as a country and paying for it now. And I liked what El Presidente said the other day about them, and I'll just leave it at that. I'm enjoying the show, and I'm just glad it's broadcasting every Saturday.
Thanks, Cleveland.
And one thing, Dennis, tune into WGN. Sure. That's where I got that, where they saying we were the highest. I'll put it on one last time. But, right. Yeah, right. GN is sending out the message. And I'm shocked that others aren't as much because of the danger that this does present. So I'm with you on that, brother. I think more people need to understand just how terrible this is, because we're in that heat circle right now, that heat dome they're calling it, and it's recirculating. We're going to get a second dose of this.
Nice.
But go back to the guys.
And I did say, or I do listen to WGN late night for the Raleigh James show for a couple hours, and then it spills over because I'm working with China at that time. And I didn't really hear anything the same day I heard it out of Cleveland. Nonetheless,
I got you.
I'm just saying, always enjoy the show, guys.
Thanks for calling in, Dennis.
Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, so this week when he said, okay, we own the Straits of Hormuz and we're going to charge a 10% surcharge or whatever on the amount of money you're getting in there. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And okay, so I was going back like World War I. So when you sent the convoy, and they were only worried about World War I submarines and some surface ships, right? But the British pretty much had the surface ships bottled up in Denmark and Norway, right? Until the Germans tried to come in at Jutland. So the Germans weren't really doing a lot of commerce raiding with their capital ships. But in World War II, it was a big thing with the with submarines, submarine warfare. So we had ships specifically designed to fight submarines, right, and to protect these convoys. We didn't have a lot of them, but the convoys went out. They had protection. This cost money, but this was for our allies. This was for the war effort. It cost money, all right? So, of course, our allies had to absorb some of that cost, Russia and Great Britain. But now, who's absorbing the cost of the United States Navy in the Straits of Hormuz?
The United States.
That's it. Well, we should get paid. We're providing the convoy escorts. We're providing the ships there. If another country comes in, they should. Okay, so I'm really getting off track, kind of pulling at strings here. Okay, so you guys all heard of Bitcoin mining, right? So all it is the computers are guessing at an answer to a blockchain. They're not figuring it out. They're just guessing. Like they're making billions of guesses a second. And so people take all these little computers hooked into the internet, making these billions of guesses, and they all pull into groups. And if this group solves a Bitcoin blockchain, they get 1 Bitcoin. And they divide that Bitcoin up based on the computer power of each owner in this group, right? So if you send in, let's say the Australian Navy comes in and they have a certain percentage of ships there providing escort service, right? Well, they deserve some of that percentage, all right? They're providing security. So based on the amount of security they're providing, they should share in that. But these oil companies in these oil exporting countries shouldn't be getting a free ride. They shouldn't be getting a free ride. What they do, they insured out of Lloyd's of London before, but Lloyd's of London stopped insuring. They're like, oh, no, we're not going to insure you. And they're like, oh, no, we got too many millions of dollars. If we go out uninsured, we could lose everything. Yeah, you could. Or you couldn't, or get insurance somewhere else. Or we have the insurance of the U.S. Navy out there. That's the thing. No, the old thing of hitchhiking, no one rides for free. That should be it. We're there. We're on the straits. No, we aren't charging you a toll. We're charging you for a protection service. If you don't want that protection service, you're on your own. We won't fire on anything that's fired at you. We'll leave it alone. If you want the protection service, we will protect you. If we can't protect you, we will, if you're going to pay us the 10%, we'll cover some of the damage out of the 10%. None of these ships are sinking and leaking oil all over the place. They're getting surface hits. They're getting a little bit of damage. Have you heard of any tanker going down?
Yeah. There's a fantastic YouTube channel you should go to. It's run by Sal Macagliano called What's New in Shipping, and he's been running an update. There's a container ship that was actually sunk, and there's been, from the civilian end, there's been 12 casualties, which includes deaths in the recent attacks. So he breaks down there, you know, like you can track an airplane. There's services that can track shipping, and then he gets the CENTCOM request, and what it's come down to is all the major shipping companies have formed their own insurance company, and they're the ones that are charging the premiums. And if they feel it's unsafe, they won't grant insurance to run the straits. Now, what they've been doing is they've been going dark at night further on in the straits, and the U.S. Navy was guiding the ships. And that was pretty successful. That's when Trump earlier came on and said, we're getting 200 million barrels of oil, came through yesterday. But when the, quote, ceasefire agreement was signed, and then they opened up the straits, that's when the problem started happening, when the more belligerent Iranians were taking shots at these. But funny thing, they weren't shooting at the Chinese and the Russians because they were, you know, giving them their tribute. But anybody else was subject to getting hit unless they were protected by the American Navy. And then, as I mentioned at the start of the show, there's very little help the UK or the French or the Indians or any of them can do to run the strait, because they don't have a Navy to do it.
Yeah, well, they should get one.
But that's 5-10 years away.
Yeah. Not. So, all right. So, with the Navy, and I just saw a YouTube video, very interesting, about rail guns. All right, Paul. So, rail
they
guns.
Want to put that on the new, quote, battleship.
Yeah. Well, they fit on it. You need nuclear power. You need a nuclear generator to develop the electricity that it takes to launch one of these steel rods at Mach 7. All right. So it takes a lot of electricity, gigajoules. It's like Back to the Future electricity, right, to launch one of these things. But what you don't have is you don't have explosives. So you don't have gunpowder, you know, Sempex or any of those things that can blow up. You don't have rocket motors. You don't have rocket fuel. You don't have anything. All you got is electric capacitors, your nuclear core, and then this piece of steel, inert steel, very heavy steel, hard steel, but it's inert. It doesn't blow up all by itself. And
it's an electromagnetic kinetic gun.
Yeah. So, but if you hit the ship, right, you're not going to have sympathetic explosions. Like back in the day, if you hit a battleship in its magazine, all right, and it set off the powder charges in the magazine, it usually blew the whole ship up. Case in point, the HMS Hood, right? But boom, one good hit and the whole thing's gone. Gone, right? Here, you could take multiple hits and it'll damage one area, but you're not going to have those sympathetic explosions. Again, the trouble is, how do you hit 1,000 drones coming at you now? Because it takes time to recharge the capacitors to launch this thing. You know, the old disposable flash cameras, right? So you take a flash picture and then you hear, right, the squeal as the capacitor recharged. Because you couldn't take a picture right away again because the capacitor wasn't charged enough to have that bright flash. So imagine that on a scale of maybe 1,000, right? You're waiting for that to charge up again to fire the next shot. You're still going to have some counter methods against smaller drones. It's all weird. There's nothing I could do about it except get on the air and say, I think that we're doing the right thing. I think we got to keep hammering it until it becomes reasonable again. And then we can let the Straits of Hormuz open up for everyone to use it for free, because we can all agree that no one should hit the shipping in there, because no one's supposed to be at war, right? If you're hitting the shipping, you're a pirate. And we'll do to you what we do to pirates, blow them up. So until such time as that's able to happen, every country in the world that's moving stuff through there, right? Moving stuff through there needs to pay us. When they get tired of paying, they could show up at the door of the supreme leader and say, listen, we're tired of paying the Americans. Come to your senses. Case in point, China and India. All right? India's got to get most of its oil from there. China gets most of its oil from there. If we're making the Chinese and the Indians pay an extra 10% and they get tired of it, instead of now sapping our strength by selling us fentanyl and taking that money, we're sapping their strength by making them pay a little extra for their oil. We're winning. They can't stand to see us winning. So how do they stop that? Well, they got to come to the door of the supreme leader, which is usually a coffin, right? Knock on it and say, hey, supreme leader, yeah, we don't like what you're doing now. Come to your senses for real. And we fight differently than the Americans. We fight a lot differently. We don't care what the press says about us. We just don't, because we own half the press, and they're not going to say anything about us because we bribed a lot of them, because we're not the United States. We're not afraid of bribing a few people. We'll pay them big chunks of money just to talk good about us when we're doing the worst thing in the world. That's when the stuff will stop. That's targeting. If they're not listening to us, if they're not listening to us bombing them, and I'm getting, again, PSYOPs, I did that for years. And the thing is, if they're not listening to you, you got to target the people that they will listen to. And they're going to listen to the Chinese or the Russians or the Indians. They're not listening to us. They're going to listen to them. So if we make it painful for them and a slightly or inconvenient for them, they'll talk to these people to remove that inconvenience. You get what I'm saying, Paul?
I do.
If the guy won't start bullying you, if the kid won't start bullying your kid, you got to go beat the hell out of his father. Right? And when you tell the father, the reason I'm giving you this beat, throwing down on you right now, is because your kid's throwing down on my kid. We tried to be nice, he won't listen. So now I'm going to throw down on you until your kid stops it. The father's going to make sure it stops. I sorry to be so simplistic about it, but most solutions do not have, most problems have simple solutions. They used to get it, the domestics. Oh, he keeps calling me. He won't stop calling me. He just keeps calling and calling and calling. Change your number. Simple solution, right, Paul?
Right.
Oh, no. Can't do that. Yes, it's real. I can have all these contacts and everything else. And so what's more important right now? Simple solution. Complicated problems have simple solutions. People don't like them because it inconveniences them more. Well, what's more inconvenient? Paying more at the gas pump or breathing in nuclear dust? To what? Okay, about 2 minutes left. So remember, we got the wooden car downhill race. We got what was formerly a Pinewood Derby track, formerly built by the Knights of Columbus, turned over to the American Legion, many of which are Knights of Columbus also. 6 o'clock, 4501 25th and Schiller Park. If you don't know where Schiller Park is, it's just south of Rosemont, just north of Franklin Park, east of the airport, and west of River Road.
And 25th Avenue is also called Rose at some parts of the
Ruby.
neighborhoods.
Yeah, Ruby and Rose, but 25th goes all the way from Oh.
Irving all the way south.
Well, it goes south past 39th Street.
Yep.
It takes this little jig around where you go under the railroad tracks. It's pretty cool over in LaGrange.
But it sounds like a fun event, everybody. Get out there, check out with the kids. It's going to be in Schiller Park at the Community Center, 4501 25th Avenue. And this is hosted by the American Legion, post number 104. They got raffles, they got hot dogs, drinks, and snacks. All of that together. Plus, you're going to have Mike Tooman over there. Are you going to go there too, Paul?
No, I won't be able to.
Okay, well, you'll have Mike Tooman. That should be good. Everybody, will see you next week. Thank you very much.
All right, take care. Have a great week, everybody.
You as well, sir.
And may the best car win.
There you go.
And serving communities during natural disasters and emergencies. If you're 18 or older, you can serve close to home with free training and just one Saturday a month. Prior service with honorable discharges are welcome. View our website today at usvjsc.org. We are